Yes, ma'am.
Of all the developments that you've done, which is your favorite?
Favorite development of all your developments?
That's tough. Like, which one of my children do I love most? I think probably the most interesting development I did, we didn't make any money on it, but it was interesting. There was a fellow by the name of Joe Riley, who was mayor of the city of Charleston, South Carolina. He got on the phone. He was bothering me every day that I had to come to Charleston and see what was going on, and he needed my help. All he needed was advice. He didn't want me to necessarily have to get involved unless I wanted to, but he wanted my advice. So on my way down to Florida, I stopped in Charleston. And Charleston is a wonderful city because it's one of our founding cities, and he took me through the town, and in this site he had there, they were going to do a hotel. And the retail area, this was on Main Street, and the main street there, and it led down to where the slave quarter, the slave sale area was, right near a development that went to the water. And it was a very interesting site. It had two churches on it, had a church and a synagogue on it from 1600 and something next to each other, and it had two cemeteries on the site. And it was a site of about 6-7 acres in the middle of town. And they wanted a hotel, a major hotel. And they had worked out an agreement with a fellow by the name of Gould from Florida, who I'd never met, who wanted to build a 12-story building there, and it would have wiped out the town. The town had a 4-story escape in the town, and it was lovely, but in trouble. 2 out of every 3 storefronts were knocked out. Glass all over the front. Glass all over the street. And it was a mess because it had gone down so far, and there were problems, race problems, all kinds of problems. Well, this fellow really intrigued me, this fellow Joe Riley. Number one, he was very, very well informed, very smart, and he knew what he wanted to do with the city. And he wanted the streetscape that I saw. He wanted that developed properly in terms of the hotel. And I thought everything he had to say was right. I really agreed with what he did, and he agreed with what I did. Anyway, I took over the project. And we built that hotel there with retail that went through the hotel out into the street. I asked him one thing that I wanted from him. So I wanted him to put the city fathers together and have them chip in some money, and they would get the money back, but they would buy all the properties up and down the street to control the future of development. So we wouldn't have any fast food restaurants, and we'd have development that worked with the street and with the community. It's a very important community in America. That and Savannah are 2 of the oldest cities in America, and beautiful old cities. So we built this project. We built 500 rooms, mini conventions with a health club and a swimming pool up on the 4th floor, and the city built us a garage, which we built retail on the 1st level so that the eye would follow around the building. And it's there. It's called Charleston Place. And the building is there. If you get to Charleston, you should see it. It's a favorite project of mine. I really like it. Oriental Express run it today, and they run it very well. All right? There's no more glass on the, incidentally, the city fathers didn't go out and buy it. They went out and bought it and bought the land and the buildings individually. But they accepted the way it should be, and they did a good job, and I had no problems with it. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
All these future development of Detroit?
Well, that's a tough one. You don't have an easy question, do you? Anyway, years ago, I was one of the founders of Detroit Renaissance, myself, Henry Ford, and Max Fisher. We started Detroit Renaissance. And we had some big ideas. We did make a lot of things happen, or on the other hand, we didn't allow things to happen that shouldn't have happened. And it's a very difficult situation. We have to try to stand for something. We don't stand for anything in Detroit. We don't stand for electronics. We stand for automobiles a week a year. We have a convention of automobiles. And we do fairly well in terms of visitors and so forth. We have these casinos now. We have 3. I don't know why we needed 3. 2 would have been fine, probably. Third isn't doing very well. And the city continues to lose people. You now have there's 139 square miles in the city, and less than 60 is used to live on and to work in. So we have it's a major problem. I believe the city should find a way to separate itself from this additional land, set up another city, another community. I know it's going to be difficult, but it might be possible if they all work together and try to make it happen. The other thing is, all of Michigan has too many organizations, too many counties, too many school boards, too many of everything. We have to consolidate this. We're an old city, an old community, and that's how we got all this, because every farm that put itself together wanted a school, and they had a school board, and that historically has made us, we have 3 times as many schools as Texas, school boards as Texas, as an example. We have all these school boards. It's a very expensive thing to operate. And it's one of the things, our taxes, as far as the state is concerned, are almost $5,000 per person. In the state of Texas, it's $3,000 per person. Now they've got a lot more people, which helps. And that's something we can't solve. But that's something we ought to think about, how we can consolidate, not only the city, but the state, how we can consolidate a number of these things. And I've talked to politicians. I don't think they have a lot of interest. It's too much work. But if they don't do that, our taxes are not going to be competitive. We won't be able to get people to move into Detroit. And it's not just a question of building buildings, it's a question of setting up a brand, setting up a system that works for Detroit, like other cities have. That answer your question? Yes.
Well, just coming back to
President Walker.
Farming and the position Detroit's in, which you just also enumerated, and then the mayor is encouraging the urban farming as a way to make use of some of this vacant land and give it some purpose other than it evolving into crack houses and gang leaders' buildings and things like that. And we have some efforts here in this college to help that urban development with some studios that we have downtown. So I was just curious about your comments about the farming, and I hear you, but urban farming with where we are now, you feel that is a mistake to go in that direction at this time in Detroit?
Well, I can't see it as a competitive system. It's fine if somebody wants to run a garden. But if it's a garden, fine. But to try to do this on a mass basis, which they were talking about, it won't function. It doesn't work in terms of the equipment. Now, you have a lot of people, so a lot of people want to work. But I don't think it'll throw off enough money to keep people working. That's the problem.
But even if you just get the land in some use until you can create an environment.
I think the best way is to tear those houses down and move people and move houses and consolidate the land and reduce the number of lights they have to use and reduce the amount of cost will be a much more efficient system.
Earlier you said there's no way you can go for 2 hours. You just did.
Thank you.
And we really enjoyed this. It's a really terrific introduction, and we look forward to your next visit 2 weeks from now. Next week, we're going to have 4 guest speakers that are going to talk about different development typologies. We're going to have Art Smith that's going to talk about office development, James Ryan, who will talk about retail, Mark Farlow will talk about urban residential, and then Ron Locke, who's also from the Taubman organization, will talk about mixed-use development. So be prepared to discuss the principles involved with each one of those types of developments with the speakers. Mr. Taubman, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.